Hey everybody, this is International Master David Proust for Chess.com, and today we are going to see a very classic Morphy game. It's a pretty famous one, so if you are already a serious student of chess, you may already have seen it. What I want you to look for in this game is I want you to look for four things which Morphy does extremely well and which you're supposed to learn from this game. Number one is how to seize the initiative in the opening. Number two is how to develop quickly. Number three is how to open the game. And number four is how to attack the enemy king down an open file in the center. Now, I'm also going to do another video on that topic, so you'll see another sample game along the same lines for that fourth part, attacking down an open file. That's under chess strategy. But this is a fundamental and important thing, so it's great to see it more than once. This Morphy game is quite sweet. So let's get it started, shall we? Morphy is playing black here, and his opponent plays f4. And we have a video on the King's Gambit, which points out that one of the good things about the King's Gambit is that it tries to gain control of the center, and one of the bad things is that it spends a move not developing a piece on move 2. So Morphy responds to it with a very aggressive move, which is supposed to emphasize what? What does this move from black emphasize? The answer is development. It's not so much that black is trying to fight back for control of the center, actually, which is what you might think because the move is in the center. But no, the actual meaning of this move is that black is trying to develop quickly. Here's why I don't think he's trying to fight for the center with this move. He's allowing white to just, capture his pawns in the center. He's not defending those pawns. He's sacrificing them. So he's going to leave white probably with some preponderance of pawns in the center. But what that move does is it lets his bishop out. So really, he's trying to create a scenario where white might get a better position in the center by capturing his pawns, but he's letting his pieces come out quite quickly. Okay? So white takes this pawn, which is the best move, and black plays e4. And this move is designed to prevent white's most important development of putting a knight on f3, which would defend against queen h4 check and help white to get his king castled kingside. So white is immediately going to challenge this pawn and fight for it. So this becomes the key square on the board. Knight c3, knight f6, and now d3, attacking the pawn more. So Morphy does a very good job here of developing in a very powerful way, right? Every development move is fighting for the key square and putting pressure on white. And now white plays bishop d2, and having blocked this diagonal, there's some danger that white is going to win control over the e4 square. So Morphy deftly switches the focus of the game, which is very clever. And this next move is a very, very good example of how you can seize the initiative in the opening. He plays his pawn forward to e3, sacrificing another pawn. But that leaves this pawn here, which means this bishop is blocked in, right? And it also means that when this pawn is gone, this file is going to be open. So obviously his follow-up after bishop takes pawn is castles kingside. I mean, I shouldn't say too obviously, because knight takes pawn is also a decent-looking move, right? Putting pressure on c3, attacking the bishop, and regaining one pawn. But Morphy's not in a hurry to win back a pawn. He knows he'll be able to. And after bishop d2, which is the best defensive move, he's going to have the chance to attack down this open e-file. So hopefully you've seen how in the first couple moves of this game, Morphy has done a great job of seizing the initiative. He's forced white to consume some time with some pawn sacks, but he's not in danger of being down too much, and he's really developed his game very, very quickly. But now what you're going to see is he needs to develop an attack from this position here. So far, white has brought out two pieces, and he has brought out two pieces plus castling. So white hasn't fallen too far behind in development, but he's created a scenario where white couldn't get this bishop out very well, couldn't bring this knight out before because of the pawn here. So he's going to try and keep that going. So the first thing he does is very important. He makes a piece trade here on c3. A lot of people think that when you're attacking, you don't really want to trade pieces. You want lots of pieces on the board to make threats with. But what Morphy didn't like was that if he plays rook check, white might bring the knight back this way, when there will probably be a trade of these bishops, and now the e2 square is defended very well, and white is looking at some position like this and maybe quickly castling queenside, or at least bringing out his pieces. So Morphy actually makes a great decision here, and instead of giving the check, he just trades on c3 first. So white takes back with the pawn so that his bishop remains defending these two squares and isn't in range of the knight when the knight comes to d5. And now rook e8 check, bishop e2. Now, Morphy could regain a pawn here and he would have a really good position. Objectively speaking, knight takes d5 is just as good as the move he played. But with the move he played, you see again Morphy's kind of focus on trying to make it hard for white to develop. His point is that white can't bring out this knight now because he'll take on f3. White will have to take with the pawn because his bishop can't move. And now the white king is in serious danger. He'll play this move, and he's thinking of queen to h4 check, right? And basically white's position is sort of structurally shattered. It's hard for him to move these pieces. Both his bishops are shut in by his weird pawn structure, and thus it's hard for him to coordinate for a defense of his king. The attack gets started pretty fast there. So bishop g4 is a very nice move, and in response, white plays a really bad move, c4, trying to keep his second extra pawn on d5. The best move for white is 100% absolutely h3, just so you can learn a little defense here. You have to attack the bishop, trying to force it to take on e2 so that you can bring out your knight from the back rank. Okay? Absolutely a forced move here for white, this move h3. But c4 is played, absolutely the wrong idea, right? Trying to stay ahead 2 pawns when your opponent is already in a position where they're putting serious pressure against your king and has an open file. But it's not that easy to win for black here, and Morphy shows an important technique here. So how would you try to win this position as black? How would you try and build your attack along the open e-file? Well, the answer is the e-file by itself is not a sufficiently wide opening of the position for you to take your army, come through the board, and come checkmate this king with this many white pieces around him. Okay, white's development isn't good, but the position is not sufficiently open that this black rook and knight have a way to help black break through on e2 right now. So if you just tried to bang your head into e2 with every piece you have, you actually wouldn't get through. White would play h3 now, you would take, and he would take with his knight. And then he would play his king to f2 and his rook to e1, and he might survive, and he's still up 2 pawns. So there is some onus on you whenever you sacrifice material to play very, very accurate moves thereafter. So, very important move from black here, this technique, to play c6. And this move threatens to take back one of the 2 pawns black is behind, and more importantly, is just trying to get a bunch of pawns out of the way in the center of the board to increase the possible attacking scope of black's pieces. So now another bad move from white, pawn takes c6. What move do you think white should play? If you said h3, you got it. White has to find a way to get this knight out. Okay, absolutely necessary. He can't just sit with his king on e1 forever like a sitting duck. You know, back in Morphy's day, as I've mentioned before, the level of opposition was essentially non-existent. People just, didn't know any principles yet, just like beginners, right? Because the whole world of chess just didn't know that much yet, and Morphy was introducing these kind of ideas for the first time, and out comes his piece, right? Thank you very much, white. And now the threat is knight d4, and only here does white realize that he's losing in, basically in one move to black just playing knight d4 and capturing on e2. So white played king f1 so that he could answer knight d4 with bishop takes g4. Morphy found a crushing move here, which at the time was perhaps a revelation, but now pretty much anyone should be able to find. Nevertheless, a cool breakthrough idea, so any beginners watching won't know this yet. What should black do here to break through and win on e2 after white sidesteps? The answer is white still has a possible pin along the diagonal, even if not along the file. So what you want to do is you want to keep your bishop on g4, but you don't want white to have a bishop which can take on g4. You replace his bishop on e2 with another piece, right, which can't capture your bishop, and then you gang up on this piece here. And with that rook sack, he immediately recovers a second piece, and so actually it's winning material for black. The white queen ran away to avoid being lost after bishop takes e2, right, which would attack the queen and king. So the queen moves away, black takes, and now black is just going to finish off this poor king Notice the power of the white rooks being undeveloped. And Morphy calculated very precisely here. So this is, impressive calculation that he saw this knight f3 check would lead to a forced checkmate in several moves. Morphy was already a pretty good calculator. Knight comes back to h6, and white has no defense against knight f5, queen g4 type checkmates. He defended the g4 square, and Morphy played knight f5 check, king g5, and checkmate. Boom. Absolute massacre, but you can definitely learn 4 important things from it. If you've already forgotten what they are, I'm not repeating it. Just go back to the beginning of the video. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you around on chess.com.